Good afternoon and welcome to the Virginia SBDC's webinar series, Google and Beyond, Marketing and Managing on the Web. This series is designed to take a look at tools and techniques to help small businesses take their business to the next level. Today's webinar is Creating an Email Community with Google. All of our Google and Beyond webinars are presented by Ray Sidney Smith, web and mobile strategist, author of So Low Mo Success, Social Media, Local, and Web Small Business Marketing Strategy Explained, and president of W3 Consulting, a digital business strategy and training firm. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type those questions into the question window and Ray will do his best to answer them. Without further ado, here's Ray Sidney Smith.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you to the Virginia SBDC Network for having me here for the Beyond Google series. Today we're going to be talking about creating an email community with Google, and the product we'll be talking about is Google Groups, and so we're going to have sort of a fun time with it. As Tracy noted earlier, we have a couple of things. One is if you have any questions, one second here, I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty here. There we go. So if you have questions during the seminar or the webinar here, feel free to ask them. Go ahead and post those into the question panel, and Tracy will do her best to interject and have me answer those questions. If you have questions after the webinar, feel free to go ahead and send those at W3 Consulting on Twitter. I'll be happy to answer those. Just feel free to hashtag them Beyond Google so I know the context. And of course, go ahead and follow at Virginia SBDC to be notified of future webinars and all sorts of other resources that the Virginia SBDC Network provides to small businesses throughout the Commonwealth. So let's get into the topic itself. Today our agenda is to talk about what an email community is and discuss a little bit about what Google Groups is, because sometimes people misunderstand what Google Groups is and its abilities. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And then we'll, of course, want to talk about some best practices for starting an email community, and really starting really means managing and building the community in general. And then I'll actually walk you through the process of starting a Google group so that you can see what it's like, and I can sort of overcome some of those or show you around some of the pitfalls that can befall you when you are starting a Google group. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about what an email community is. An email community for me is this hybrid of email and a web-based forum. So many of you may know what an email forum is. They're very old. This old concept of being able to send an email to a specific email address, and that email address then blasts it out to many other people, and those folks can then reply to the emails, and it just basically shuffles the email back and forth. It's an asynchronous form of communication because it's not real time, and you can, of course, communicate with many people at one time, which makes it somewhat of a social technology. So I tend to lump email communities within the idea of the social media or social web communities because they are innately capable of being social, and this web-based forum component basically attaches it to the web. It puts it on a website. So it's basically a special website that tracks all of the threads, basically the topic conversations in and on this website, okay? So email and web combined to create this community for you to be able to share and receive information, and of course get to know one another. And because this is your small business, you get to be the community leader because you're starting the forum, and it allows you to be able to be out there on it. So a couple of things about the email community concept and where it might be applicable for your business. First, you can use it as a customer service portal. So a lot of people actually do this. They'll have some kind of forum, some kind of email community that lives on their website, so that when someone has a problem with their software, their product or service, they go ahead and go to the website, go inside the community, and they ask their question about their specific issue that's happening with that particular software. When you do that, you are engaging not only with the support representatives for the business, but also with everyone else there in the community. So it can be very helpful on two levels, because you're not only getting the help of the business owners support service or whomever, but you're also getting the help of other people who might be experiencing the same problem, who might have also overcome the same problem. So you're getting two communities sort of meshed together to be able to, two different parties inside the community to be able to help you with that particular problem. So you get to share your own resources sometimes, because when you go to the email community, you might notice that someone has a problem that you've also overcome, or someone's using the product or service incorrectly, and you can help them. So in many ways, email communities end up being this back and forth sharing and receiving, giving and getting perspective within the community. And of course, that third part of the community is getting to know one another. Once people get to know one another, you get to know who your best customer advocates are, or best brand advocates are, and you get to be able to help them help you in referring business to you. So really powerful in a lot of ways in the support realm. In other ways, you can create email communities that surround just specific topics or different kinds of areas of the business. So you can create a knowledge base. So say, for example, your product or service has other ways in which it can be used. Well, you can create an email community all around the different uses of your particular product. So, for example, there's a piece of software called Remember the Milk, and it's a task management tool. So it's a to-do list, basically, on steroids. And so you go in there and you're able to add your tasks that you want to do for any particular day, and you can create new tasks, and you can do all sorts of really complicated and complex types of searches, and those create new lists. Well, anyway, the point is that Remember the Milk decided to take their community and convert them into idea generators. So everybody in the community who generates ideas for this particular software, say I'm using Remember the Milk to manage my grocery lists. Well, how do you do that? If you submit how you do that to the email community, which they then turn into a blog as well, they go ahead and promote it if they choose it, and you get a free year's worth of service from them if yours is chosen as the best one for their blog. So you can see that they've used it as a marketing tool to create lots of content for their email community as well as for their blog, and lots of people go there and they enjoy learning different ways in which people are utilizing the software. And it's not customer support, it's not customer service, it's literally, this is how I'm using it, and this is how it can make your life better. So you can have lots of different opportunities within an email community. Those are just two examples of ways in which you can use an email community. So just think about them, start getting your creative juices flowing, and you can start to think about how you can use this email community in your own business. Okay? So next up, what are Google Groups? So Google Groups is basically Google's version of the email community concept. Okay, so you have the email community, and Google is sort of the platform in the sense that it provides you with the tool, but it also provides you with all of these other Google Groups that exist. So Google Groups is the platform because there are so many other Google Groups out there. I see a raised hand. Is that a question? Go ahead and type your question out, and hopefully Tracy can let me know what the question is. And so let's move on. So Google's version of an email community platform includes, one, all your discussions centrally organized, which means that you might have a Google group that you're going to launch, say, subsequent to this webinar. So you launch your Google group, but there could be hundreds, if not thousands of other Google groups that might be of interest to you. I don't recommend you joining all of them, but you can pick, a few of them, and now those Google groups that might be of interest to you are all managed within the Google Groups platform. So now you don't have to go to 15 different websites to be able to manage those Google groups. As well, if you want to have 15 different Google groups at some point on different websites, on different topics, with different communities, you can manage them all from this centralized space. So this is very similar to Yahoo groups and to the MSN or the Microsoft Live groups at one point. I'm not quite sure where they are now. But at one point I managed probably, if not a dozen or 15 Yahoo groups, and those migrated over to Google Groups at some point. And so now all of my Google Groups are all within the Google Groups world. They're parts of different communities, book clubs that I run, and different support mechanisms for different businesses, and they're all in one centralized dashboard. So I can communicate with all of those people as necessary and respond and so on and so forth without having to go to all of those different websites to be able to find the forums. Okay, so really, really great to have all of those discussions centrally organized. The next thing is that you receive your communications flexibly, and what I mean by that is that you have all of the email functionalities that you'd like built right into the Google Groups dashboard. So if you want to receive your email from the groups one at a time, every time someone sends a message, you want to receive it in your inbox, you can do that. If you want to receive just summaries once a day, you can have that done as well. And because it's email communications, if there's something not in the Google Groups dashboard that doesn't allow the filtering the messages, you can always do that on your own email side. So you can have each message sent to you to your email, but now you can go ahead and set it up so that you only filter these email under this criterion to come to your primary inbox, and the rest will get shuffled to another folder or a label within Gmail that says, this Google group, and you can check it whenever you want to. So you have lots of flexibility when it comes to receiving the communications and managing the communications flow. You might get a lot of email, one would only hope, right? Because then it's creating lots of content and you've got lots of active and engaged users. So you might get a lot of email communications if you are really successful with your Google group. So make sure that you know the abilities of your email program as well as the abilities of Google Groups, which I'll show you in a little while, so that you're able to really get around and understand it. Next up, and the reason why I really enjoy Google Groups, is the ability to have it mobile enabled. So Google Groups, as I'll show you in a moment, is mobile enabled out of the box. So when you launch a Google group, you just go to the /m for whatever the group is, and you'll have a mobile enabled website. So you don't need to install any new software on your phone or anything like that. You just go to the mobile website, and you can manage and interact with the Google group. So you don't have to have necessarily access to your email or anything like that. You can go right into the Google group on the mobile site and engage, which means that more people can have access to it, and when you're on the road anywhere, you can go ahead and do it. I actually really like the mobile-enabled site for browsing regularly because it's just cleaner. So instead of having all of the stuff going on, I just literally go to the mobile site and I see exactly the topic threads. I can respond to them. They're in streamlined HTML for mobile purposes, so they load really quickly, and you go on with your day. So really, really helpful there. So I just want to talk a little bit about best practices, and then we'll jump into the actual Google Groups site and talk about how to really set up the site and so on and so forth. But there are some really important best practices when it comes to setting up really any email forum. In this particular case, we're talking about Google Groups, but we really want to pay attention to these because they are what's going to help you really start and maintain an active and engaged community. Okay, so again, when we talk about the community, we're talking about a community that is giving, getting, and having a sense of belonging because they're getting to know one another. Okay, so you really have to work to engage them on all three of those levels. And since it's email, it's really easy to get lost in the shuffle, and we want to make sure that our active, engaged users stay active and engaged through the process of good email. Okay, so think about really most of the good email practices, and they apply notwithstanding the practices that you have as a community manager. Okay, so as a community manager now or a community leader in the business, you have sort of a higher level or a higher standard that you need to set for yourself when it comes to engaging with those audiences. Tracy, there seems to be a question. Should I answer that question now before we move on?
No, Ray, this one can wait till the end of the session.
Wonderful, great, all right. So, best practices. For some reason the shuffling between slides today is not working as fluidly as I would like it to, but here we go. The first item on best practices for starting an email community are know your email community mission. So that means your email community needs to have a mission. Very similar to when you start a blog or when you launch your website originally or when you launch your business in its startup phase. You should have a mission for each level of those things. So why are you in business? What is your mission for being in business? What's your mission for having a website for your business? No longer is it just to have a calling card, like a business card. Your website needs to do something, and attaching an email community to it and embedding one on it can be a really wonderful addition to the functionality and the purpose of your website. But why do you have a blog? What's the blog's mission? Well, the blog's mission is not the same as the website necessarily. The blog's mission is not necessarily the same mission as your business. You need to figure out what that specific mission is within the context of the blog that feeds up toward the mission. Now, same thing applies here with your email community. You need to make sure that your email community has a mission, and that mission leads back upward toward the business's mission. Your email community can be something like, in order to foster a great community among the users of my X product, or provide new ideas for innovation for X service or Y service. So you might have different purposes and missions for having the email community. It can be broad, it can be very specific, but make sure that you have a mission. Once you have a mission, figure out whether or not you want to publish that mission or it's going to be a private mission for the business. So if it's going to be a private mission for the business, you need to share that among all the staff. If it's a public mission for the email community, you need to publish that on the Google group itself, okay? And I'll show you where that happens once we get there. Next up, have established guidelines and post them for all members to see. So this is really important. If you don't have rules of engagement when it comes to email communities, they get unruly really quickly, okay? It's sort of like taking a bunch of people and dropping them on a stranded island and stranding them on an island and not giving them really anything but supplies. By nature, they have to create their own rules, their own rule of order, and many times that's not probably the best thing to do when it comes to putting those people all on your website and giving them no rules of engagement, okay? So provide those standard operating procedures for them. Tell them what's good about being a part of this community. Tell them what they cannot do. One of the primary guidelines usually is that they can't promote other businesses or their own business on your website. It's just not because it's necessarily illegal or anything else like that. It's just tacky, and so you don't want them to do things that are potentially gauche. So let them know that those things are not appropriate, and then of course telling them what things they should post. Give them examples, show them what they should be able to do. And finally, once you've established those guidelines and written them out, check in on them on occasion. Usually every 6 months to a year. You might want to look back at the guidelines after you've had a couple of weeks of testing them out. You're, of course, going to look at them again and revise them. And then 6 months every year, sometimes things happen on the email community or the email forum, and your email community has some kind of abrupt or weird or unfortunate circumstance. Someone posts something, someone says something, and it requires you as the community leader to make a decision and respond. Is this allowed? Is this not allowed? Is this person fostering community, or is this person no longer good for the community? Well, those are things where they should be written in the established guidelines, and that way removal from the community or inviting people to the community is well known and transparent to everyone else in the membership, okay? So it's really important for everyone to know what's going on and keep them apprised of the rules in which they're engaging within the community, and that keeps everybody happy, okay? Keep the posts useful to all people. So this comes into play in a lot of email communities. I see this very frequently when an email community will have 5 posts a day, and 4 posts are to individuals. That is like, hi Sally, you have this particular issue with this, you should probably do Y with your computer. Well, the reality is that why do I care about Sally's particular specific issue and it's not useful to everyone in the group? You really have to make a decision And this comes into play in the guidelines, so you just have to figure out whether or not Sally's issue is applicable to everyone. But in general, posts should be useful to everyone in the community. If they're not useful to everyone in the community, then I start to get lots and lots of messages in my email inbox as a user, as a consumer, as your customer. I start getting lots of email in my inbox that are really useless to me, and more so, probably I can't probably help Sally with her issue because it's so specific. So really understand that if it's a support forum, you have to understand that people are going to have specific problems, specific issues. But if it's much more of a community where you're generating ideas and being involved in ideas, those kinds of posts should really be private messages, and understand whether or not you need to just have that as a private email communication and taking that offline, or whether you need that to be a public conversation on email forums. I usually use the Pareto principle here, which is that 80% of the conversations that happen on email forums should really be happening in private messaging and not in the forum itself. So just understand that a lot of these conversations are really not useful for the forum, and so just make sure your guidelines are consistently updating to match that reality, that we should really be having those conversations offline, and that the posts that are really useful to everyone should go on the forum. Finally, topic threads should stay on topic, and this seems like it would be pretty common sense, but it's one of those uncommon sense issues. Many times topic threads start to devolve into far-reaching conversations that are completely off topic. It's your job as a community leader to make sure that topic threads stay on topic and that people actually write subject headings for topic threads that are actually the topics, so that they're not duping someone into coming to a topic thread that isn't necessarily the topic they planned on. So you don't want someone soliciting advice for one particular type of topic or thing versus another one because they wrote the topic wrong. So keep topics on thread. That means monitoring the topics. If someone says, hey, I have this new problem within my product, and they're halfway through the email, what you do is you would respond to them and say, hey, can you start a new topic thread for that specific issue so that people can help you on that, and then we can continue the on-topic topic that we are currently discussing, and that way it's separated for everyone. So be sure that you make sure that topic threads stay on topic. All right, next up comes into play with regard to praise and criticism. This is very similar to employee praise and criticism, which is that you should praise people often, thank them for putting their content on the site, thank them for helping other people with their particular issues, and criticize constructively and keep that constructive criticism to a minimum, okay? And so it's really important that you understand that if you're going to be critical of someone's contribution to the email community, that you explain to them what can help them, or why their particular thought or whatnot is in some way, shape, or form not the best. And of course you want to do that in limited fashion. If someone consistently feels that you're picking on them or something else like that, or that you're picking on a group of people, that will of course hurt the community, and they will leave. Make sure that you always have supporting evidence when it comes to any kind of constructive criticism. So if you say, hey, by the way, you're misusing my product, and this is how you're misusing it, show pictures, attach some photographs of how to properly use it, and how improperly using it is the way that breaks it. You just show people how these things work, and that way they don't feel like, oh, you're just just throwing things off the top of your head, and therefore, I'm right, you're wrong, and I'm going to leave the community and not continue to contribute. If you have someone that you need to constructively criticize, you can, of course, turn them into someone who will be a great brand advocate, if you just support them, okay? So make sure that you think about this as being a supportive community leader and not someone who's attempting to be right all the time. The job is the whole community to come together and be better for being brought together by you. Next up is prove you're worthy of referrals, and not by soliciting commercially. So I know this is on your website, and therefore you can do whatever you want in terms of sales, copy, and all those things outside of the email community. But once you establish an email community, it's really not about soliciting business. You need to be able to foster people, very similar to in social media. You need to bring them closer to you so that they want to refer you business. So what you want to do in those forums in the email community is you want to be able to give the best advice possible, provide the best customer service, provide yourself in all those capacities that allow the people who are engaging to say, wow, the next time I need to tell, I get asked by Sally or Joe about this product or service, I'm going to make sure that I refer it to you because you've been supporting me in this amazing email community. And knowing that then I'll be able to bring Sally and Joe to the email community, and they'll be able to see how wonderful you are and refer more people to you. So it ends up being a pyramid of referral because it is going to start out with someone who feels that you're worthy of referrals, and then those people will feel worthy of, empowered to send more referrals, and it just continues to cascade. And so I've seen this done in lots and lots of really great businesses, as long as you pay attention to the fact that you're not soliciting business from them. So many email forums that fall apart, they do that. They start sending out basically their email newsletters into the email community, and that's not what it's for. It's for being able to foster a community, not to be broadcasting marketing communications to that group of people. Those people are usually people who are already aware of your product. They're already committed to you because they've joined your email community. So just help them understand how your product or service works better, and let them then refer you business. That's it. That's all you have to do. Okay? Next up, it's your forum, and so that means sometimes you've got to be the bad guy. And this goes back to establishing good guidelines, but you're the community leader. You need to stay positive. You need to always have a positive perspective. You never want to have a negative tone. If you've been having a bad day, well, then maybe you need to put that, response away until you've had a chance to come back to it. Look at it with a fresh set of eyes when you have the strength, the willpower to stay positive, because it's really going to be your responsibility to enforce the rules, but to always putting a positive spin on things, okay, and to make sure that you're keeping this from a public relations perspective on point and on cue for people, and not being negative and overly defensive about things. You really need to stay positive. But at the end of the day, when something has gone wrong or something needs to be corrected, remember that this is your community and it's your responsibility. So, as a community leader, you need to step up to the plate and say, hey, Sally, you can't say those things in the email forum. If there's a 3 strikes and you're out rule, I have to enforce those things and I'll have to remove you from the community. Or, hey, Joe, I know you really mean well by posting these links to these articles, but all of those articles are really just off topic. They just really don't help the community. And that's a private conversation that you would have with those people, but you need to make sure that you have those conversations to make sure that the rest of the community doesn't fall apart because you allow all of these public conversations and public discussions that are not specific to your email community or off topic, or have people who are spewing vitriol, those kinds of things. So I know that it's sometimes tough to be the bad guy, but you have to put and stay positive when it comes to those things. I'll give you just a minor example. I was recently at, and this is an in-person or in real life sort of scenario, but I was at a book club meeting, and as a heavy reader, I like to, of course, discuss books with people, and I'm sitting in this particular book club, and in walks the several staff members from Meetup.com. Nothing against Meetup.com here, but they showed up in order to survey the group. So here goes a group of people who have just read this book and know each other and want to intimately discuss it with one another. And the book organizer, is sitting there, and they said, "Hey, who's the organizer?" And the folks from Meetup said, "Hey, do you mind if we come in and just sort of, watch what you guys are doing. And the book organizer said, oh, yeah, sure, go for it. Now, that's the number one error in this scenario, okay? As a book club organizer, this is a group of people who read the book, who want to communicate in a safe space with each other, and quite honestly, that book organizer should not, the book club organizer should have said, I'm sorry, but you know, you're from Meetup, and we're not guinea pigs. This probably makes some people in the group uncomfortable. The book club organizer didn't actually ask any of the members whether or not they would be comfortable with having, maybe taking a democratic vote, something like that. But you can see how all of a sudden the conversation stopped. The book club basically halted because everyone was like, why are these people literally standing over us watching us talk about a book that they haven't even read? So things like that can make a situation turn immediately uncomfortable. Within about 5 minutes, the folks from Meetup actually apologized and then exited. And that didn't have to happen because the book club organizer could have kept the conversation going, walked those folks from Meetup outside and said, I'm sorry, but if we had known prior to and we had just alerted people, we could have had seats for you and you could have sat with us and contributed or what have you. But I think it would make the group uncomfortable knowing that people were just walking in and staring at us like we were lab rats. So that's one of those examples where, as a community leader, you really need to step up to the plate and not let things like that happen. Okay? So I hope that the example is demonstrative to how you can sort of apply that in the email community, because people can do that. People are going to email you and say, hey, I'm a PhD candidate and my thesis is really on something that relates to your product or service. Can I send this survey to your email community? Well, generally that's a no. It would be wonderful to be able to help people like that, but you have a business to run, and you're not there to turn your email membership into a bunch of guinea pigs. So that's one sort of situation where that sort of relates. Don't do that to your community. You want to really continue to foster it. That means you need to protect them as much as you protect your own business. Okay, cool. So let's get into actually launching the Google Group. I just want to show you around the Google Group system, and first I want to show you the mobile-enabled site along with the regular site, just so you can see what it looks like. And so I'm going to take you over to the browser to do that. All right, so let's hop on over to Google Groups. So I've already logged in to Google Groups. If you go to groups.google.com, you'll be immediately taken to this forward. Here you can see it in the address bar, but it will take you to this website, and you'll be in the site as it looks right now. In the top left-hand corner, you can see, of course, you'll be taken. If you click on this Google icon, you'll be taken back to the main Google Groups website, basically where we are currently. And you can see here, if you click on the Groups section here, it'll take you pretty much back to this place. But these two are different when you look at them. One takes you to the forum, the other one takes you to the main Google Groups website. Either way, you want to click on the Groups one whenever you want to come back to this view. Okay, so just to clarify, you always want to click on the Groups here if you want to come back to the list of groups that you're in. Okay, so below that you have My Groups, and you can see that if you click this little arrow that's to the left, it will drop down a list of all the Google Groups that you are a member of. Okay, and if you're an owner or a manager in one of those, it will then allow you to be able to do certain things because you're a member of it or not. Okay, if you are a member of lots and lots of Google Groups like I am, you can go ahead and star the Google Groups that say you're an owner of, so that you can quickly and easily jump to those within your starred list of Google Groups. And you'll see that those favorites, those starred items, will go ahead and add it to your favorites if you go ahead and click on a group's star icon. Okay, so you can add items to favorites by starring them. All right, so you can see My Groups. You can browse other Google Groups by going to there, but I'm not really going to worry about that right now because that's not really within the context of what we're talking about. If you need to search for groups or messages, you can go ahead and use the Google search bar at the top of the Google Groups forum page, and it'll take you in, and you'll be able to search just like you do on Google, but you're searching specifically within the email communities. Okay, so to start a group, you just click on this, reddish, sort of orangey red, sort of light red icon here. I don't know what color it is on your screen, but click on the Create a Group icon. If you, I just wanted to show you the mobile-enabled website, so while I'm at it, I'm going to hop over to that. So in this tab, you'll see that if you go to groups.google.com/forum/m, and then just click on it, it will take you to this longer URL. Just bookmark it on your mobile phone browser, and then you have it. And whenever you want to go to it, just go to Google Groups, in your mobile phone's browser, on your tablet's browser, and you'll be taken to this view. You can see how this view is very different from the desktop view. This desktop view, while clean, it's still within the same perspective that Google has in terms of having a clean interface. You can see that there's text, and there's 2 different columns, and there's 3 sections to the website. The main navigation at the top, side navigation, and then the body content area. Well, Google Groups has 1 column. All of the items are basically in these sections that are here on the left-hand side, and all of your conversations will just basically be listed under it within each of the groups. Very, very simple interface. Like I said, if I'm in a place that has limited or low internet connection, broadband access, I go immediately to the mobile site because it'll just be faster and easier for me to do things. I won't be able to do everything that I could do at the desktop, but it gets me to be able to read and respond, which is exactly what I need to do at times. Okay? So just don't forget that the mobile-enabled website is there, because it's really, really helpful. All right, so I'm going to close that out. And so here we go. We're going to create a group, and I'm going to show you around some of the functions of the group once we're in there. All right, I'm going to click Create Group. Here in the group name, I'm just going to give it a group, and so I'm going to call it My Small Business Google Group. Okay? You can see here that once I do create the group name, it automatically creates an email address. Now, the email address and the actual forum address are very important. So here we have My Small Business Google Group at googlegroups.com. That will be the email address that people will email if they want to become members of this group. So there's a couple things about membership within the group, and I might as well talk about them while we're here. One is that you do not need a Gmail account or a Google account at all in order to become a member of the email portion of a Google group. Okay? So if your clients all have corporate email addresses, or if your clients are using Yahoo or Hotmail or Outlook or something like that, they can happily join the email group. What will happen, though, is that they won't be able to interact with the Google group on the website. So that means they won't be able to log in and have access to those kinds of conversations and be able to post on the website. They'll only be able to interact with the site via email. Okay, so that's the clear differentiator. If you now want to interact with the website, you do have to have a Gmail account. And of course, as I said before, I logged into my Google account in order to be able to access Google Groups. So you, as the community leader, must have a Google account. Okay, that doesn't mean you have to have a Gmail account. You just have to create a Google account. All right. So I've named my group. I have given my group an email address, which is basically the group name with dashes in between it at googlegroups.com. It's not case sensitive, so you could capitalize, initial caps the letters of the words. That won't make any difference. Then when we're in, right below it, you'll see that it creates a URL. This is the URL that you would share with your potential members and letting them know that they can join by going to this particular link. Okay, so in this case, it's this long groups.google.com, groups.google.com/d/forum/my small business Google group with hyphens. Okay, so make sure that you know those 2 pieces of information. You probably want to write them down or copy and paste them into your a document that you keep all of those information pieces or data points about this particular Google group. Next up is the group description. This is where I talked about earlier having an email community mission. This is the place you want to have it in. Okay, so you need to create a mission for the Google group, and you're going to want to describe what the group is all about, and what its mission is what you're going to put here. All right, it's public. So this is information that will be publicized to everyone on the web, so make sure that it's something that you want to share with the world. If not, then you're going to want to make it a little bit more generic so that, people are not coming to it that may not be appropriate to your particular community. You can choose the primary language of the group. You can select the group type. So in this particular case, you can change the group among several different options. So you can see here, you can select the group type as an email list. An email list allows users to post from the web or through email. So it's just pretty much primarily a mailing list group. The web forum literally allows people just to engage by the web interface, and they'll only receive updates, not the actual emails, alerting them to the tools that are on there. This is if you need something that's a little bit more, it's a little bit more set up for being able to control the conversations. Okay, so if you need a lot of moderation tools, you can go ahead and do that. You can create a question and answer forum. This really helps if you're trying to create an FAQ or frequently asked questions email community or forum on your website. So this can be really, really great because it says, you know, here goes a particular problem, and then here goes how it was resolved, and users can go ahead and pick which one is the best in terms of that. The collaborative inbox is one in which it treats each of the topics as tasks. So if you have a group situation where you're trying to manage lots of tasks that need to be done, this collaborative inbox allows you to be able to do that. Either way, we're going to stick to the email list function for this and just keep it at that. You can play around with the other different types of groups, but I'm not going to get into that in depth today. So we have basic permissions underneath that. You can view topics, post, and join the group, and control who can do that. Okay? So in this particular case, you say view topics. You can have all members of the group view all topics. You can have only the managers of the group view all topics. You know, all of those kinds of differentiators. You could have the public view all the topics, so that if it's a completely public group and you want to allow people to view the topics, you can go ahead and do that. And that way, the group is pretty much public and it's being indexed by Google out there. But then you can limit who can post to only members. So now only members can be able to do that. Okay, so you can limit in those ways as well. Next up, joining the group. You can select who can join. You can make joining a public thing, so anyone can join by themselves. They don't need your approval. But if anyone can ask, is basically I have to ask you to be able to do that. If it's much more selective or exclusive membership, you can use the only invited users selection, which means that you need to send them an invitation in order for them to be able to join. I'm going to say anyone can ask for now, so that if someone comes to your website and wants to join, they can go ahead and do that. Let's click Create at the top of the field, and Google is just going to ask me to go ahead and confirm that I'm not a robot. And that's it. Congratulations. You've created a Google group. Okay, so at this point, you can invite people to join the group. You can go ahead and customize the group settings and start by adding a topic and starting to post. I'm not going to invite anybody to the group, but I'm going to show you where that happens. When I click on the Invite People to Group, you can see that we're taken into the administrative dashboard, which is for this specific group, okay? And you can see that there's a tab that shows us all members, and then the second one down is Invite Members. In the Invite Members area, you just type in the email address of the person that you'd like to invite. So say that I wanted to invite myself. I can go ahead and type in my email address and say, hey Ray, I'd love for you to join my new email community, and it was my small business Google group, right? And now I'll go ahead and click Send Invites. It'll ask me again to type in a number to tell me that I'm not a robot. And now there you go. An email invitation was sent, okay? And you can see who you sent the email invitations to, and that person, once they go ahead and receive the invitation, they can go ahead and confirm that they wanted to join, or that they do want to join because they're interested in your email community. And once they've done that, then you'll see them as a member in the All Members section. Once they go ahead and do that, and I'm actually receiving the invitation now and accepting it. Oh, well, it's not working. But either way, so what would happen is the invitation would be accepted, and then you would see the individual show up here. So in this particular case, you can see that I've used my, my sample account to be able to create this particular user. Whoops. And you can see there's a display name. I'm the owner of the Google group, and my email address, how I deliver email, and how I'm allowed to post, and so on and so forth. What we want to do, though, is we want to be able to make some changes to our particular user. So in this particular case, you can see that there's a display name, which is, me, so quote unquote. The roles I have in this particular case, I'm the owner of the group, and email delivery. So you can say that you don't want any email at all. So you're going to come to the email forum, and you're going to regularly check the forum to manage conversations. You can also go to the abridged email function, which is one summary of all the new activity that day. You can get a digest email, which basically sends you up to the 25 new messages in a single email at a time. And then, of course, all email, which sends each message as people send them. Okay, so you have the choice of all of those in terms of email delivery. And then, of course, you have all of the email functions on your side of your email software to be able to manage those as well. Posting permission, in this particular case, you will apply permissions, as I'll show you shortly, in terms of who can post what, when, and who needs moderation. Okay, so in this particular case, we can override a member to make him or her allowed to post. We can override to disallow them from be able to post at all, and we can override to allow the member to be posted only upon our moderating, or one of the moderators going ahead and allowing that post to go forward. So one thing that happens in an email community that's really important is that over time you might find that there are trusted people in your email community who you can promote to be moderators. So under here, the roles, you have manager, member. Well, you can make them a manager with the ability to go ahead and moderate posts and allow them to allow other posts in, which of course reduces your workload. So maybe you might have staff members who would be in the email community who would help manage the moderation of posts if you feel that's a necessity. Or if there are other people who are customers that you trust, you can actually appoint them as managers to be able to moderate posts as well. So you get some ability to delegate within the system itself. Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to show you was under here you have the, up in the top right-hand corner, you have your regular Google items, but right below that you have your Google Groups settings. And under the Google Group settings, you have the ability to go ahead and click on Membership and Email Settings. Now under here, it gives you the ability to see your own contact information, your own display information, and you can go ahead and edit that. So in most cases, you probably want to change your name to your name plus your business name, or just your business name altogether. You can link or unlink your Google profile here, and you can, of course, go ahead and decide on how much email you're actually going to get every day, basically from the same place I was in the membership section. You can go ahead and make those changes here as well. All right, so in terms of email delivery. So if you wanted to go ahead and do that, you can do that here as well. Also, if you need to transfer ownership to another account, say you decide to move to a Google group, another Google account, or a Google Apps for Business account or something like that, you can transfer ownership within this particular link. Okay, so you can do that there. So that's important there. All of the group settings and management, once you leave that initial screen, can be managed from this gear icon in the top right-hand corner. Just drop down to Group Settings, and you'll be taken back to this section here. Okay, so want to make sure that you know that before we move on. So gear icon, drop down to Group Settings. You'll be taken to this area so that you can change a couple of things. So here under Members, you can see all members, and you can invite members. You can direct add a member. Use this very, very cautiously. You don't want to direct add members without them knowing or wanting to be a part of your email group. You can see outstanding invitations. So in this particular case, I've invited myself to the Google group, and if I still see it here as pending, say in a week, I'll probably follow up with the person and say, hey, I sent an invitation. Did you receive it? Just to make sure. Okay, you can see all the people who have requested to join your Google group here on the join requests page. All right, down under messages, you can see pending messages, so that any messages that are open for moderation, you can go ahead and do that. This allows you to be able to not only approve, but also to reject, and also reject with a comment. So you can say why you rejected a comment if you wanted to. Okay, so some posts require you to, not require, but some posts you will want to let them know why their post was rejected. Sometimes you'll just want to reject it and move on, like in the case of spam. Okay, under the settings item here on the left-hand side, you can see settings, drops down, opens up to email options, and under email options, you can force a subject prefix for every email. That can be really helpful so that people can filter their emails for your email forum. So many times people will literally just put the what we call the slug for your email community here in brackets, so that every email that goes out under your Google group will have that at the beginning. So if I'm a member of your email community, now I can filter all of your messages to a specific folder for your group by using just this prefix, because no matter what anyone sends in the Google group, it will have that subject prefix in it. So I'm confident that it will always have it, so I know that I can filter based on it. Okay. In the email footer, you can add all sorts of really cool stuff. One is you can display the URL to it, so they give you this is the actual footer that will show up that I've just highlighted. This is the footer that will show up in every email that's sent out. It will be appended to the emails and sent out for you. Excuse me. One thing that's really great is that you can actually add additional custom footer text, which means that in addition to people who you have this unsubscribe link here, people can unsubscribe automatically from the Google group. You can also actually give other instructions for how people can interact and engage. You can give a link here to the guidelines for the group. So you can actually put your link to it if, say, you put that on your website. Well, you can put it on, and now you have the email community guidelines. It's emailed to every email, so people can't say, oh, I didn't know about the guidelines, because the email community guidelines are well within there. You can actually, if the guidelines are really Spartan, you can actually write them all out in here. You can literally put all of your instructions in here. You have you have about 900 or so characters, 1,000 characters, 1,000 characters to be able to put into that custom footer. So you can utilize it. If your email guidelines are less than 1,000 characters, go ahead and put them right in there. So that can be helpful. All right, under this, we're going to save, moving right along. You have the ability to deal with how people go ahead and identify themselves within the community. I'm not going to worry about that so much. You have moderation rules, so you can go ahead and tell people how to moderate how they'll be moderated. So they may have to moderate by, having so many posts approved at some point. They'll go into the queue if not. You can tag and categorize the Google Groups conversations. In general, I have not had a great deal of success using tags and categories. I've found that they, in the web area, tend to silence or at least close off conversations in a way that doesn't really help me. But by all means, you can try it out. Under permissions, you have the ability to change the permissions you created in the initial setup of the Google group, and then of course posting permissions, moderation permissions. I don't want to get into those too specifically, but the point is that they exist and they're there for you to be able to play with. And then under roles, you can see that you have owner, manager, and members. So those are the three different roles, and you can of course create new roles. When you create a new role, they may have different abilities, and so you can of course give them particular abilities to be able to do things within this particular group. Okay, and give them different types of permissions. Okay, anyway, under information, you can go ahead and change the Google group name. You can go ahead and change the Google group email address. So if at some point you start getting a ton of spam from someplace because you've allowed a particular user in and they've created multiple users, or if you have a public Google group that just continues to get rampant amounts of spam, you can go ahead and change the group email address to be able to do that. or if for some reason the email, the Google Group email address and then therefore the URL is just too long, you can go ahead and shorten it if you need to. Just remember that you let everybody know beforehand so that they don't end up losing you and not knowing where you are. You can change the group description, add more content, that kind of thing, and then you can change some of the other kinds of topic types and so on and so forth. So you can change discussions to questions and discussions and questions. As I said before, I'm not going to get into the group types and the topic types today. You can see what that's all about. There's a wonderful ability to embed. This is why I keep talking about putting it on your website, but you really do want to embed this on your website. And you can see here that they give you instructions on how to do that. All you need to do is copy and paste this little iframe onto your website, and they have more information. And in this particular support article, you can see that they tell you how to set it up, customizing the group. You can see there's all sorts of ways in which you can customize the look and feel of the group on your website. So you just literally set it up, put it on your website, and then you have the Google Group on your website that you can manage directly from Google Groups, from the mobile site, and so on and so forth very, very easily. Okay? Very, very cool. You can allow yourself to be listed in the group directory. This is what I mean by groups being a platform, in the sense that you can be listed in the Google Groups directory, which means that if someone searches for your product or service in Google Groups, they can then find your Google group and join it from there. So if you want to publicize within the Google Groups directory, you can go ahead and do that, or you can take yourself out of it. You can control content by archiving messages to the group, and or you can go ahead and turn off that archiving so that it's not archived by the group. So that means that those messages will not be available on the web. It'll just be email only. One thing that you can do is you can actually add another email archive service by adding an email address to it. That's a little bit more sophisticated, but if you know what I'm talking about, then you can do it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then use the archive messages to the group so you don't lose things, okay? In here, you can also change whether or not it's adult content and so on and so forth. You can use different voting capacities to be able to do that. You can also thread conversations. And then, of course, you can delete the group if you'd like. So if you need to delete the group, you can go ahead and do that. And there's other things that you can do in order to make that happen. So with that being the case, that's really just a quick run-through of the Google Groups community. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those. Tracy will be able to ask those questions for me. I can answer them, and then we can close out.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ray. Well, the question that was asked earlier was asked by somebody who met you last week in Springfield, and he said his carrier, he just received your book yesterday. Question I asked you at the event last week was that his carrier is Verizon and he has Outlook on his computer. You had given him a source to get rid of unwanted email and he's misplaced it. Could you provide that to him again?
Oh, okay. So that must, I'm guessing I know who that is. And so we had talked about you having some email problems, and I probably recommended to you Postini. And so it's probably Postini, P-O-S-T-I-N-I. But you should check out Postini and see if that will help. I believe you were using an Outlook-based system, and you can confirm that to Tracy if I am confirming your
exclamation point, yes, that was it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thankfully, my memory serves me.
Well, we wait to see if anybody else has questions. I'm going to go ahead and close out this session. Thanks, everyone, for participating today. Today's webinar was recorded and will be posted on the Virginia SBDC website under live recordings and webinars. Tomorrow, you'll be receiving a follow-up email on the webinar, and there'll be an evaluation in that email. There's also, I posted that in the chat window if you want to go ahead and fill out the evaluation now. We would really appreciate it. It helps us to improve our training. So that would be great. We will see you on August 21st for writing email messages that work. And Ray, we do not have any questions, so we can go ahead and close up. Thank you again today, Ray, for your session.
Thank you.